So the Erie Otters are set to make their first and only visit to the Sadlin Arena this weekend to take on the Barrie Colts. And in previous years, we've had Sean Bednard on to talk about the Otters, but Sean has moved on, and in steps Trevor Kubeja. And Trevor, I wanted to have you on just to greet you and get to know you a little bit because I understand you are from Erie, so it's kind of that easy transition for you.
Absolutely, Mike. First of all, thanks so much for having me. And yeah, it's been a whirlwind. It's really a dream come true. I grew up going to Otters games my whole life. I was in the building in 2017 when they won the championship. I wasn't quite alive when they actually beat the Barrie Colts in 2002 to clinch the first OHL championship here in Northwest PA. But the Otters are a team that's very near and dear to my heart, and to be able to broadcast the games and bring the sounds of Otters hockey and the sights of Otters hockey back to Northwest Pennsylvania has really been an honor.
And every time I've watched an Erie Otters game over the last few seasons, you and Sean just great chemistry. You guys seem like you're having a ton of fun, and it seems like that's carrying over into this season as well a little bit.
Yeah, certainly so. So Sean and I, very good friends, and I'd love to think that that came across when watching a game or listening to a game on the radio. I still text him every day, and obviously he's doing great things with the Hammond Health Foundation. And Tim Quinn, who's become my color analyst, is somebody that I've gotten to know really well over the last couple of years, and again, have really built up a great friendship with. So we're on the road, we're rooming together, we're always around each other in the office. We share an office as well. So we've been able to kind of build that same kind of chemistry and friendship. And what's really been unique as well is this year's having him between the benches, where he was last year as more of a sideline reporter type role, but actually doing color commentary from down there. A unique challenge for myself of having somebody I'm calling a game with. Look, I quite frankly haven't really called a lot of games with a color commentator as it's been in my short broadcast career to this point. Having somebody be on the other side of the rink from where I'm doing the game has been a challenge, but it has really been a lot of fun, and I think adds a unique and dynamic element to our broadcast.
And it's great at this level because we can experiment with things, try new things with the broadcast, and it's really cool just to see that dynamic grow. And you mentioned that you guys are going on the road. You've been putting on a lot of miles to start this season. Last weekend, you were in the West Division, all the way up in Sault Ste. Marie, and then through Michigan, and now you guys are getting ready to go on another road trip. You guys getting ready for some home cooking eventually?
Eventually, yeah, this month of November should be a little more friendly in terms of the mileage. That road trip to the Sioux, it started in Niagara on the 18th, went to Brampton, then Sault Ste. Marie, then through Saginaw and Flint. It was 1,200 miles, about 12% of the Otters' total travel for the season. Unbelievable. This road trip is one of only two in the month of November. Otters will be in Barrie, of course, Saturday, then Owen Sound on Sunday. And then middle of the month, they go up north to Sudbury, North Bay, and then return to Oshawa before heading home. So it's an interesting month. It's getting a lot of the long trips out of the way though now, which is good before the weather starts to turn, because travel in Erie certainly is not as friendly as it would be to somebody in Barrie, Brampton, Kitchener, kind of the more centralized locations around the OHL. Our closest opponent is Niagara at 2 hours, so it's a lengthy journey around the lake, whether you go up to Michigan or whether you go up through Ontario. So it's one thing that I've certainly learned to embrace. But growing up as a fan, you don't really think about the travel. It almost feels like from a fan perspective they just teleport and they're there. But it's a lot of a grind on the bus, but also a lot of time to work, get things done, and enjoy seeing some great cities around the OHL. The travel is my absolute favorite part of the job. I love road games. I love the idea of the radio broadcast and just being on the road, being around the guys all the time. You pick up so many nuggets that are usable on the broadcast just within your time around the guys and around the rink. So that's something I really don't take for granted, and as a part of my job that I absolutely adore.
And for the Erie Otters, a lot of change coming from last season with players graduating or players that have gone on to the NHL. And, there's that faint hope that maybe they come back. Although I think Matthew Scheafer might be pretty comfortable with the Islanders, but still, you're on the road, and this is a time for these players to even bond and really, maybe, set the pace for this team as the season progresses.
Yeah, certainly. So this is a team that has experienced a lot of turnover. You look at what's been done in the offseason, it's been bringing in a lot of NCAA commits, McLean Egret, Luke Plant, Ritter Coombs, guys that come to mind when it comes to that. And, even in the draft process, Tyler Cooper, second round pick of the Erie Otters, is a guy that you look ahead a couple of years down the line. College is probably going to be the plan for him as well. So the NCAA rule has affected the Otters immensely over this last couple of years, bringing in Cal Hughes and Garrett Fraser, both of whom are returning players from last season that otherwise wouldn't have been able to play in the OHL. But on the other side of that, you lose Malcolm Spence. Matthew Scheafer is just almost a unicorn in what he's been able to do as an 18-year-old in the National Hockey League. I think most people around the organization, myself included, expected him to probably play his 9 games and come back. You ask me that now, though, and I don't think there's a chance we see him again. I mean, he has been just dynamic. He's beloved in New York, as we all knew he would be. It's just awesome to see for such an amazing human being to get that opportunity and to take advantage of what he's doing. But to kind of go back to it, it's been a lot of new faces for Erie, a lot of young faces. Is a team that has struggled at times to score, but have started to kind of find that stroke a little bit as of late. So guys getting used to the OHL and used to that pace of play that again came up through the American style.
And yeah, you touched on Matthew Scheafer there. I know there's quite a few people who were asking me at the start of the year, is like, well, how long is Schaefer going to stay with the Islanders? And we were kind of thinking, okay, well, he missed so much time last year with the Otters. The start with the illness and then the broken collarbone. So you kind of thought, okay, he'll get a taste of the NHL and then he'll come back. But just seeing the way he plays, it's reminiscent of what we saw with the Erie Otters last year. So it's amazing how he can go from playing junior to this professional rank so smoothly.
It's amazing, right? Again, I think it tells you a lot about the player that he is, and even the person, the grind that he puts in to make that happen. Again, I thought 18-year-old defenseman in the NHL. Usually you don't see that. I think Drew Doughty is a guy that a lot of people talk about as kind of the last person to really do what Schaefer's been doing. And when you're in a conversation with him, obviously you're doing some things right. And Drew Doughty was a late birthday as well. Schaefer is a September birthday. So that certainly changes everything with the Otters. I don't know how much of the plan was for him to come back versus wasn't. I think it was definitely discussed, and most people assumed probably. But you look at what's happened. I think that's probably changed a lot now. And again, that's credit to Dave Brown and co for planning worst case scenario of bringing in as many players and many bodies as you can to fit the Chris Millette system and have those guys ready, available, and producing for in the case that he doesn't come back. So he's been incredible. I've really enjoyed seeing his rise throughout the OHL and now into the National Hockey League has been just a blast to see from an outside perspective, and even from the perspective of covering him here in Erie, Pennsylvania. It's been an absolute blast. I always joked with Sean. I got to call his first OHL goal. I was filling in for Sean at the time when he was getting married a couple of years ago. So I always would hold that one over him and still mess with him about it to this day. So Schaefer's a guy who will definitely be really important and influential in my broadcast career for the very tiny part I played in that. So really, really special player, and again, an even better human being.
And you mentioned there's a lot of new faces on this team, and there's also some familiar names. The Mishiak name continuing here. How you've now been able to see the two brothers? Are they playing a similar style of game, or are you noticing some differences?
Definitely some differences. Alex is a little more physical. He's plays a little more of a cerebral style, where Marty was just a sharpshooter, man. He had one of the best shots I've seen in the OHL in a long time. Just an absolute laser. And it was so precise, and he would score at the best and most important times of games. It was just a blast to watch. But Alex is again more of a playmaker style of role, and he's fit in really well. He scored a big goal in Saginaw last week on that road trip. A guy who comes over from the USHL, just trying to kind of grind his way through the OHL. But you look up and down the history of the Erie Otters. Brothers have been certainly a theme, and good to have the Mishiak boys representing here in Erie.
And one goaltender I've always liked with the organization, Noah Erliden. When we saw him here in Barrie last year, so impressed by his game and just how he can shut things down and look comfortable doing that. And for Erliden coming in again this season, is this a spot that Erie fans are quite confident about seeing him between the pipes?
Yeah, goaltending has really been a strong suit of this team, whether it be Noah or Charlie Burns. Both guys have stepped up big time for the Erie Otters this season. Erliden, of course, an import pick ahead of last year, takes up an OA spot on this year's club. So he has been everything as advertised. So far, so good for him. Had a really good month of September into the first half of October. A little bit shakier as of late, but still a player who the Otters really count on in between the pipes night in and night out. He's a guy that, he can win you a hockey game. He can save the day for you, and he provides just a lot of stability between the pipes. And that's something that this team really needs. They've played really well in front of him as well. There's one night he had 58 shots to face. He stopped 54 of those, and unfortunately didn't get a star honor. That was in Ottawa to begin this month, but he was really good that day, and he's been really strong night in and night out for the Otters. And then when you have to go to Charlie Burns, you're not losing much in that regard. He's been very solid, of course, veteran in this league, was with the Niagara Ice Dogs before coming over to Erie, has done a very nice job, kind of in a backup in a supporting role. In this goaltending room, you look at where the record is now, you look at where this team is now, goaltending has certainly not played much of a part in where the Otters currently sit in the standings.
So when the Otters come to town on Saturday, Barrie Colt fans are going to recognize the Frasca name out on the jersey on the Otter. I feel like there's been a Frasca in this league for as long as I can remember. At least that's what it feels like. And with the Erie Otters, you've got a Frasca leading the team in scoring right now.
Yeah, certainly so. I remember the days of Jacob and Jordan running up and down the ice over the last couple of years. But yeah, good to see Gabriel Frasca making noise for Erie. He's come in, he's point per game player, just about that pace right now for Erie. Did not score on Saturday in Flint, so drops just under that point per game threshold. But he's been a guy who has just been so consistent. He's been able to be relied upon night in and night out on the top line for the Erie Otters. Has kind of shifted who he's been playing with. At one point, he was with Mishiak. He's been playing more recently with Dylan Edwards and Wesley Royston. So seeing him just kind of rise this season, 19-year-old year for him. Obviously, a high pedigree. Kingston Frontenac's first-round pick comes over here to Erie last season. I think kind of had a year of just getting his feet wet, but I think he's really developed and really taken on a much bigger role here in year two with the organization. And he's been a guy who's, again, been just so reliable for Erie night in and night out.
So the Western Conference, with the way things are looking, it's going to be a dogfight, from top to bottom. And we were talking off the air about the London Knights now picking up Brady Wasslin, who you're familiar with because Erie and Niagara play quite often. So when you look at the Western Conference and to this Erie Otters team that's, at the bottom right now, but it seems like it's such a competitive race that anyone on any given night could win, really.
It really does feel that way. I mean, you look at some of the results over the weekend, Guelph beating Ottawa. I mean, Ottawa has gotten off to such a big start this season. I was very impressed with them when we saw them back in October. But, you look at, again, the Western Conference, it does feel very open this year. I mean, London making a move, trying to add on to their squad and try to boost their lineup. Obviously, I think they got off to a little bit of a slower start, maybe a little worse than some were expecting for the reigning Memorial Cup champs. But you look at a lot of the bodies that they lost as well heading into this season. I think coming into this year too, there was always going to be kind of an openness about the OHL just because of the unknown. There's so many changes around this league, and guys coming in, guys moving out. I feel like more than we've seen in a very long time, and I think that's kind of led to that anybody can beat anybody mentality, and that's really taken shape over the OHL over these first month or so, month and a half of this season. So there certainly are. There isn't really that one team other than Windsor, right? Windsor and Kitchener were kind of the two coming into the season. Everybody's like, okay, they're going to probably run away with it. I don't know if anybody predicted the Owen Sound attack to get off to the start that they have gotten off to this season. Guelph has certainly taken a lot of steps in the right direction. Sarnia, they were toward the bottom of the barrel last season. They've gotten better. Flint's gotten better. In terms of teams that have thought, maybe have dropped off a little bit. The Saginaw Spirit, to me, obviously, they've lost a bunch of teams. I wasn't overly impressed with them on Friday night at the Dow Event Center. So I'm kind of curious to see where they're going to end up. Obviously, Nikita Klepov has gotten off to a great start. I'm really high on Carson Harmer, even though he's gotten off to a little bit of a slow start there in Saginaw. So I'm curious to see where they're going to end up. I'm curious to see if Flint can keep it consistent. And Sarnia is that other team kind of near the bottom of the Western Conference that really interests me on, where they're going to compete with Erie. And of course, all these teams are in the West Division, so the Otters only see them 4 times a year. So kind of you feel like they're going to have to start to pick up some of these wins against divisional opponents. Of course, Owen Sound on this trip coming up over the weekend, so interesting to see how they will play. And I'm really curious to see what's been the big strength for them. So kind of a long-winded answer, but this Western Conference is really fascinating this year with how it started to shape up.
And of course, despite all the changes, the Midwest looks like it's going to be a dogfight once again. I don't know what it is. Every year, the Midwest looks like the toughest division in the Canadian Hockey League, and this year seems to be no different.
Yeah, certainly so. And again, I think it goes back to the improvements that we've seen with the Owen Sound attack and the Guelph Storm. Obviously, London and Kitchener were going to be up near the top. That's basically a given, especially year in, year out in the OHL. I mean, those two teams as consistent as it gets in the Ontario Hockey League. But for Erie, usually typically kind of middle of the pack toward that upper echelon this year, unfortunately, again, gotten off to a little bit of a slow start. Curious to see how they're going to shape up and how this season will roll on for the Otters. But it really has been fascinating to see. And again, those divisional games are always such a dogfight, right? And it's come out that way over the last few years. And for Erie, they're in a position where, they can maybe steal one. They've already stolen one from London this season. You never know when it comes to these rivalry games. Erie and Kitchener has become a nice little rivalry. The Otters will have played the Guelph Storm on Thursday by the time they make their way to Barrie on Saturday. So I'm interested to see what that game looks like given Jet Luchenko's return to the Royal City. So going to be fun to see how it shakes out. But yeah, those Midwest Division battles always carry a little bit extra. And of course, for the Otters, fascinating with their schedule. They don't play anybody more than 6 times, and those are all their division opponents, and then the Niagara Ice Dogs on top of that. So really fascinating to see how it's all going to shake out.
Well, Trevor, I appreciate you doing this, and we'll see you Saturday night here in Barrie.
Absolutely looking forward to it. Only my second time to the Sadlon Arena, so gonna be a really special night, and obviously a cause that is near and dear to our organization's hearts with Children's Grief Awareness taking place on Saturday there in Barrie. So a little bit of a home and home series with that. So really looking forward to a special and emotional night as well. And always fun when these two teams collide. Always great to relive the memories of '02.
It's always great just to see that rivalry, and all the best, Trevor.
Thanks, Mike.
So that's Erie Otters radio voice, Trevor Kubeja, and it's always great to catch up with the broadcasters around the Ontario Hockey League, both old and new, as Trevor doing his first full season behind the microphone with this Erie Otters organization. And it's like Trevor mentioned, there's a lot of history between these two teams dating back to 2002 when the Erie Otters won the OHL championship over the Barrie Colts. And I know there's still some Colt fans who bring back those memories of that run. So it's great to catch up with Trevor, and we'll continue this series talking to other media members from around the Ontario Hockey League. So be sure to click subscribe so you're notified when we do post the next interview. So thank you very much for all your support. Also hit like, and we'll talk to you again later.